Okay, a warm welcome to all of you who have already joined this webinar today. Welcome esteemed participants to our webinar titled today as Learn the Art and Science of Strategic Leadership. So we are really thrilled to have you here as we explore the intricacies of strategic leadership and provide valuable insights into IIM Calcutta's advanced program in strategic management for corporate leaders. That's a 8-month program that we intend to discuss. So, as you know, in today's dynamic business landscape, effective leadership isn't just about making decisions, it's about making the right decisions at the right time. Strategic leadership is the cornerstone of success for any organization, you would agree, guiding its direction, shaping its culture, and driving innovation. But mastering the art and science of strategic leadership requires a unique blend of skills, insights, and foresight. So what does it necessarily mean? It means that the journey to becoming a strategic leader is multifaceted, involving a deep understanding of business dynamics, industry trends, and the ability to anticipate and adapt to change. So it's about more than just managing resources. It's about inspiring teams, fostering collaboration, and aligning every action with a clear vision and purpose. At the forefront of empowering leaders with these essential skills is the Advanced Program in Strategic Management for Corporate Leaders, which is offered by IIM Calcutta. This renowned program goes beyond traditional leadership training, equipping participants with the knowledge, tools, and strategies needed to navigate the complexities of today's global marketplace. So, this program, participants in this program gain valuable insights into strategic thinking, decision-making frameworks, and organizational dynamics. They learn how to analyze market trends, assess competitive landscapes, and identify opportunities for growth and innovation. So, of course, you also have case studies involved, simulations and interactive sessions, which are live. They develop the confidence and competence to lead with clarity and conviction. So, while concluding with the, the topic discussion that we have today, mastering the art and science of strategic leadership is essential for driving organizational performance and achieving long-term success. So of course, even the program which is aligned towards this goal, leaders can acquire the skills and insights needed to navigate today's complex business landscape with confidence and competence. As the world continues to evolve, strategic leaders will be the guiding light, leading their organizations towards a brighter future. We are extremely privileged today and honored to have our esteemed speakers from IIM Calcutta to address this webinar today. Professor Biswatosh Saha and Professor Mritiunjoy Mohanty, who are the program directors of the APSMCL program, which has successfully delivered 15 batches so far over the years. And they have been the guiding force in terms of conceptualizing this program and giving it to the world in terms of its program curriculum, design, and delivery. I would request my colleague Shreyashi to introduce our speakers of today. Over to you, Shreyashi.
Thank you so much. I would like to introduce two of the esteemed program directors of APSMCL offered by IIM Calcutta. The first program director that I would like to introduce this evening is Professor Biswatosh Saha. Let me just share a few words about him. Professor Biswatosh Saha is, Dr. Saha is a fellow of IIM Calcutta who also holds a PhD in management, and he has earned his BTech in mechanical engineering from IIT Kharagpur. Specializing in post-colonial management studies, critical management studies, and the digital economy, he served as an assistant professor at IIT Kharagpur before joining IIM Calcutta in 2003. Currently a professor of strategic management, Professor Saha has co-authored influential books and journals widely adopted in premier business schools, showcasing his significant impact on management education. I extend a warm welcome to Professor Saha for the webinar today. The second program director for APSMCL, esteemed Professor Mritiunjoy Mohanty. Let me introduce him to all of you as well. Professor Mohanty is a PhD in economics from Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, New Delhi, and he has been a professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta since September 2009. His research covers open economy, macroeconomics, growth, political economy, employment, development economics, and international trade. With an MA in economics from JNU, his expertise significantly contributes to understanding global economic dynamics. He has published extensively, notably on globalization and India's growth strategy. Moreover, his teaching experience extends to universities in India as well as abroad, further showcasing his broad academic impact. Warm welcome, Professor Mohanty. I would now request our esteemed speakers to address the audience, and just a couple of words before I hand over the forum to Professor Saha, who would be the first person addressing the audience this evening. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of today's interactions. I would request all of you to keep your questions ready, and we would be addressing them at the end of the session. Thank you so much. Over to Professor Biswatosh Saha. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to this short webinar. On behalf of all of us and on behalf of our institute, IIM Calcutta. Now, let me spend a few minutes that I have in trying to give you an idea of the logic or the philosophy behind the conceptualization of the program and its design, what we try to achieve in it, who is it meant for, right, which is the right audience for the program, as well as a little bit about the method that we adopt in delivering this program. All of these, as you will note, is intricately linked with each other, and it's an interlinked set of decisions that we took when we conceptualized and designed this program. Now, our experience of dealing with senior Indian management, and which has been happening over a long period of our training experience with people in practice, tells us that Indians are generally not very strong in strategic thinking. And what I mean by that is we are more operationally driven than strategically driven. We are good in following orders, in executing well, but not so well in conceptualizing important moves. So, and this has a history. This has a history in the way our economic systems and organizations and firms were structured for a long, long period of time. So right now, if you look into your environment or working environment, the organizational environment, and also the global environment, people say that we are moving into an era of increased uncertainties and risks. What this translates to is formulas or recipes or rule of thumb that have been successful in the past will possibly no longer work, or you'll not be sure whether those same recipes will work if you replicate in future. So extension of trends of the past into the future will increasingly become problematic as you navigate through these phases of increased uncertainty. And those uncertainties are coming from technological changes which are happening, but very importantly, which is underappreciated a lot, is coming from major geopolitical shifts which the world is undergoing. So we are really moving towards a multipolar world, and that has major impact on what happens to organizations and how organizations, the kind of problems that organizations will have to encounter in the coming days. So what all this uncertain environment translates to for organizations is strategic decision making no longer remains a top-down senior management, top leadership, board level activity. Good organizations now require a significant diffusion of strategic thinking abilities down the line to their senior middle managers. And this is a major gap in Indian organizations where their middle to middle senior personnel are not equipped with good strategic thinking because they have been following orders so far. If you are in the public sector space, the most important strategic decisions would have been taken in the ministries. If you are in the private sector space, it would have been taken in the family offices. So beyond that, for the operating level managers, right, strategic thinking has not come naturally through your years of experience as managers. So there can be scenarios, for instance, where you have a lot of experience in an industry, you know how it works, but yet you might be lacking the tools and mechanisms of thinking strategically about your context. So this is the gap that we think is there in the Indian industry, and this is the gap that is worth filling, which will actually solve many problems for many people on the field who are in the practice facing challenges of competition in the global markets today. So this is what the program aims at: equipping senior middle management leadership who are moving into profit center roles or moving into leadership roles to prepare themselves to handle the risks and uncertainties that they will be exposed to once they get into the hot chair. So this will also mean that people who come into this program will have much better analytical understanding and clarified understanding, and they will know why their organizations are doing what they are doing. Right now, middle management remains the executor of the decisions of the board, not often realizing why the board chose to do something at the point of time that it chose to do it. So after this program, you will not only be equipped to move up, you will also be able to better understand your top management and senior leadership in terms of why they are doing what they are doing. You will be able to better frame and understand competitor moves and what it means for the organization and for the ecosystem that you are operating in. And moment we develop this understanding, what happens is we get into much better conversations with senior leaders, with analysts, and so on and so forth, who are important strategic decision makers in the broader ecosystem. So the purpose of this program is to fill this gap, to equip people with the tools so that they get into better conversational dynamics with the senior management and important decision makers. And that we think is a very important mechanism through which you actually gain upward mobility inside organizations and systems. Now, there's a specific method we follow in actually delivering and this program across 6 or 8 months that we will be with us. Unlike many other disciplines where you can teach something through lectures, right? You can instruct somebody about a technicality of a concept. Strategy as a concept or as a discipline is a little difficult to grasp. It is very slippery. So it's very common to find that after you have read some strategic concept, it seems very easy when you read it. You seem to have understood it. But when you try to apply it in a practical context, you get a little befuddled. Right? How do I apply it in this context? What does it mean here? So this is a subject which can be grasped only with lot of practice. In Hindi, what you call abhyas. You need a lot of practice to really grasp some of these principles which are the basis of strategic thinking. So that is why it's a long duration program. We'll take you through an 8-month period of intensive practice, not only exposure to the concepts, but very carefully curated set of practices that we take you through. And those practices are on simulated case studies, which are like a story and historical story that you will have, historical narrative of a business either in India or anywhere around in the world. And you will have cases across national and cultural context, from North American context, from Asian context, East Asian context, Chinese context, from the Indian context, from very recent cases to will take you back into history, 1950s, 60s, 1910s, right? This will all be important strategy problems. And you will be given assignment to read it. And every class, the general practice in this program is that you will have an assignment to read through, which will be a 20-30 page kind of document. You'll have to read through it, work on it as a group on some lead questions, put your mind to it, struggle with those ideas, try to frame an answer to it the best you can, given, right, starting from bottom up common sense processes and your, right, in your existing understandings. So in the class, we do not start with a concept. We start with your understanding of the problems that are part of your assignment. And from there, we slowly build up, correct your understanding where they're wrong, take you to more refined, nuanced understanding, nuances that you might have missed while reading that case. And at the end of the session, we conclude with what is the concept that has been illustrated in this narrative that was the part of assignment in a particular class. So it's a very bottom-up process where you struggle with a problem, a very real life phenomena, and slowly come up with, in a very organic process, through conversations, through debates amongst yourselves and with the facilitator of the class, instructors like us, that you finally arrive at a concept. So when you get the concept, it's not a dry, abstract description of some words and pictures and diagrams. It has a story behind it. And our experience tells us that even if you forget the framework and the tough technical words, you will not forget the story. And that is very important. People learn by stories, and if the stories are ingrained in you, then the stories will come back when you face that problem of a similar kind in your practical life, right? So our method is very designed for achieving certain objectives of transforming your perspective of looking at strategic problems. You go back to what I said earlier. The purpose of this course is to achieve a transformation, moving people from operational thinking to strategic thinking. So we will not give you too many tools, but what will enable is this perspective shift from moving from operational thinking, which you will all be great at if you are middle management, leading teams, leading zones, head of departments, head of sales, right, or senior general managers. You'd have been very good, successful operational managers. The little bit that we'll do is to infuse the art of strategic thinking so that you can take the next jump, right? And as I told you, this comes with practice, and hence we have this whole pedagogic process. So what we expect from you is when you enter this program or register for this program, be sure to allocate enough time for this program. This program time is not just the 3 hours that we have, which is the weekly class interaction that we'll have online. To prepare for each of the class, you have to factor in 4 to 6 hours of weekly work, which you can do at your own pace, part of which will also have to be done collaboratively with your group members. So it's this combination of own work, the abhyas, and the concepts and the lectures, right? And the practice and test of what you have done. It is these repeated rounds which help you over a period of time to transform the perspectives. And we have been doing this for many, many rounds now. And if you come into this program, you will be surprised with how much your way of looking into the world around you will change after this program. Because that is precisely what this program aims at, right? The rationale for the program, as I said, is how is this useful? So if you are in middle management position, say 25 years from now or even 15 years from now, the urgency of picking up strategic thinking would not be as high as it is today. 20 years back, when you go to the very top job, maybe some bit of strategic thinking will be useful to you. Today, organizations at fairly middle management levels will make you profit center responsible. And then you not only have to execute things well, manage your resources, but decide how to utilize it, how to choose it, how to make those trade-offs, and how to deliver what is called the return on investment on the assets that are with you. So you will have to move from delivering sales or output, which are all top line numbers, right? Numbers linked to the volume of work that is done and the volume of sales that you obtain, to responsibilities for bottom line, which means after all these sales, what is the return on capital employed and what is the return on investment that you have got? Generally speaking, in the olden days, middle managers would be responsible for top line deliveries, And it is only at the very top, 1 or 2 layers who take charge and are responsible for bottom line thinking. This is what is being delegated right now. And as you delegate the ROI responsibility into lower levels of organization, you have to pick up strategic thinking capabilities and strategic frameworks much earlier in your career than say 15 years back. So this is the context in which you should see the relevance of this program, that the managerial work world is changing and it is demanding more strategic acumen at lesser senior roles. Second, the environment itself is becoming more turbulent, both geopolitically, technologically, and in many other senses, institutionally and socially, so that companies and organizations will have to handle the tough decisions of adaptation much more frequently than they used to handle, say, 15, 20, 30 years back. So if there's a recipe which worked 30 years back, you would know that it will work for 5, 7 years. The shelf life of a successful formula is much shorter today, right? And therefore, you have to revisit your strategies more frequently, which also creates pressures for organizations to diffuse strategic thinking more democratically amongst more number of organizational actors, so that you can have quick convergence on strategic issues, right? So the environment is changing. You are moving into larger uncertain zones. Organizations are demanding greater strategic clarity from their operating managers, which is why this course is useful and timely for you to adapt to the new requirements and new demands that the organization and the environment will increasingly want out of you, the demands that they will make on you, right? Who is it aimed for? Who is a good student or a good participant, perfect fit for this program? Anybody who is moving into profit center roles, who is head of divisions and is attempting in the next 2 or 3 years in their career planning, they want to move into general management roles, right? From there to anybody who is CEO or CEO -1, right? For small organizations, founders will find this program very, very useful, right? So that is the kind of crowd that this program is aimed at. And this is the composition that we have had in the programs in the past edition: senior managers, senior middle managers, and founders of small organizations. Middle managers and senior managers, vice presidents, and so on for large organizations, and founders or of startups or small mid-sized firms, 200, 300, 1000, 1500 crore sizes, right? So this is the pool that we are targeting. Then what we are addressing in this program will be hugely useful to this whole crowd. So with this short description of the program, its rationale, the pedagogy that we follow, which I shared that with you a little bit to set your expectation on the kind of time demands we will make out of you if you come into this program. So we must be very clear that this is not a program where you can just come into the class, and so there will be work to do before you come to the class. And it is that prior work which will make the class extremely interesting, interactive, and enjoyable, right? And effective from the pedagogical perspective. So with that introduction, let me now invite Professor Mritiunjoy Mohanty, who has been a part of this program from very early on. In fact, this is a cross-disciplinary design in the program. And I come from the strategy discipline. He comes from economics. More specifically, is an expert on political economy. And it is a jointly designed program between two people from two disciplines who approach the problem from two different perspectives, right? And all that you will see reflected in this whole program as you go through. So Professor Mohanty, please.
Thank you, Professor Saha, for that very nice introduction to our program, and welcome everybody this evening to this webinar. And I hope you take back with you some sense of what we try and achieve in the course of this advanced program on strategic management for corporate leaders. So let me pick up from where Professor Saha ended, in terms of the focus of how you look at decision making. So he said that this program is particularly useful, right, for people who have been given, who are now looking after profit centers, or hope to look after profit centers, and will hope to make the transition to leadership roles in 2 or 3 years' time. Now, he also mentioned two other things, which is that when you begin to look at it as a profit center, your focus then has to go from the top line, that is revenue, sales, output, revenue, whichever way you want to define it, to the bottom line, right? The bottom line is the net of all expenses. What is the profit that is made, right? And then he introduced one other term, which is said that profit that you make, the firm makes, your division makes, but more than your division, that your company makes, that profit will define a term which he said is the return on investment, return on capital. Now, this return on capital, right? Where's this capital coming from? How much capital that you have is not mentioned in your P&L account. Your P&L account, profit and loss account, is a flow, right? Capital, return on capital. The capital you'll find in the balance sheet of your firm. Now, what is the balance sheet? I mean, in many ways, you can think of a balance sheet, assets, liabilities, and so on and so forth. But the balance sheet represents the interests of the owners / investors, right? And that capital, what is the leverage ratio, which is how much external money you're getting, how much equity, how much debt, etc. All of that will then define how that profit converts to return on capital, right? So one of the things that this program does, which is central to its architecture, is teaches you the relationship between the profit and loss account and the balance sheet. As a leader, remember this is a program for corporate leaders. As a leader, as a corporate decision maker, as a CEO, the two things that Professor Saha mentioned here, your bottom line and your return on capital, and the return on capital you can only define in terms of a balance sheet, right? So the two key accounts, the two key accounts that we use for pedagogy purposes is the profit and loss P&L account and the balance sheet, and the way the two are linked. Remember that if I have too much debt, the debt has to be serviced. If it's to be serviced, it will be serviced out of my P&L account. Remember, if I have too much equity, if my equity base is very broad, then my profit will have the same amount of profit, will have a lower return on capital, right? With a narrower equity base, the same amount of profit will have a higher return on capital. So broader equity, narrower equity, debt, all of these. Now, one of the things we do is equip you with thinking about these two in a holistic fashion, right? And that truly, strategic thinking, strategic decision-making is the ability to see the firm in its entirety. So when you link the profit and loss account to capital account, you link the flow to the stock and you take it together. And at the end of the day, the return on capital is the key variable which determines how well your firm is doing. Right? You can't understand return on capital without understanding the P&L. Because the P&L generates the resources, the flows with which you're going to define that. Right? Similarly, good strategic thinking also takes you out of silos, out of operational silos, out of work silos, right? So you stop thinking as from being the accounts department, you stop thinking as being the marketing department, you stop thinking of customer service department, you stop thinking of operations. You think of these all contributing as a whole, and you develop the ability to see the contribution of each of these various departments to that whole. And it's when you can do that that you have gained strategic vision. As Professor Saha said, you go from being in charge of operations to being in charge of determining return on capital. So if you're going to determine return on capital is a variable, then you have to see, suppose I use the same set of resources that I have to pursue path X or path Y. Do I sell to China or to Germany? Are the two equivalent? Do I need different competencies? Those choices, those trade-offs is what we equip you to think about. And those trade-offs, those choices are at the level of the firm and not at the level of the department. Right? The title of this webinar mentions two words. It says the art and the science. Right? So we teach you also that strategic thinking is very rigorous. But strategic thinking also is about making a choice. But all choices are informed choices. That is, they run the risk of not turning out to be correct. Right? To the extent that the future is always unknowable, that I do not know exactly how it will turn out, to that extent, it is always an art. But in exercising that art, you must back it up with the rigor of thinking, which is the science of strategic thinking. Right? I'll give you two examples, and in the interest of time, I'll wrap up. So you all have heard of both Toyota and Tesla, right? Until BYD came, I'm sure you know what BYD is, which is it's a Chinese EV maker. Tesla was the uncontested king of the EV market. It's challenged by BYD. Today, BYD has dethroned Tesla as the biggest seller of EVs in China. Globally, Tesla still remains the biggest seller of producer and seller of EVs, and BYD is number 2. But Tesla and BYD both are pure play EV companies. That is, they only make EVs. All right. Toyota is a pioneer. Yeah, Toyota is a pioneer in the making of hybrid cars, battery cars, and electric vehicles are operated in lithium-ion batteries. In integrating lithium-ion into the production of automotives, Toyota is a pioneer. Prius was the first electric hybrid to be introduced globally, and this happened 20 years ago. Now, when you look at Toyota's plans for the future, just as both BYD and EV, right, have said that the future of the automobile is going to be pure play EV. Toyota has said, no, the future of the automobile will be hybrid and EV. And anybody who writes off Toyota as having lost the plot has lost the plot, right? So you've got two very different conceptions of what the automobile market will look like 15 years down the road. One is BYD/Tesla vision, the other is a Toyota vision. Both have got a huge amount of rigor to back them up, but they're making different choices. That's the art, right? And the second example I want to use is Boeing. Now, Boeing is a company which you've heard of in the last 2 or 3 years with all the bad news. Planes crash, fuselages crash, windows get unstuck, etc., etc., etc. It's currently under the scanners of the FAA, and they said corners have been cut. Boeing is an engineering company, which is supposed to be the hallmark of engineering success, right? The case with which we end the program, the case with which we end the program is a case on Boeing. And it takes you back to a point where Boeing decided to make a decision which was going to influence its trajectory for the next 20 years. That case that we've been teaching all these 15 years will explain to you exactly why Boeing is where it is. Now, this is something about the program. It's live. It engages. It tells you about the world around you, and therefore equips you to think about a world which, as Professor Saha said, is undergoing very rapid geopolitical and technological shifts. I'll close with one small observation. We also teach you that everything that you teach you has a context. For example, we teach you that firms behave differently in Japan. Firms behave differently in Germany. A firm behave differently in the United States. What works in Japan will not work in the United States. What works in the United States will not work in Japan. Yet, both the United States and Japan and Germany produce world beaters. And you understand how they do it, the different paths they take towards the same goal. So with these few words, I hope you will join us on a journey which Professor Saha and I have always found exhilarating, which is a new batch of the advanced program on strategic management for corporate leaders. Because for us, it's always very exciting to engage with people who come from the field, from middle management, senior management, and that engagement enriches us as much as we hope you will get something out of it. Thank you, and we'll take the Q&A. Shreyashi, over to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Mohanty, for the discourse that we just had with you, and it was extremely interesting. I should speak on behalf of all the participants this evening. Moving on to the questions, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. The first one mentions, what's the difference between operational and strategic thinking? Do you think everyone can achieve it? It's yeah, over to you, professors. That's the first question.
Yeah, so it's like Professor Mohanty said, there's a science of operations, there's a science of strategy. Once you know the science of strategy, you know how to distinguish between the two, right? And that is what we teach you in this program.
Thank you, Professor Saha. Moving on to the second question.
And to the writer, can everybody achieve it? Yes, everybody can, so long as you're interested in strategic thinking.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty. I am moving on to the second question that we have in the Q&A box. It's a bit long. I would just read it out. Focusing industrial trends as sustainable development goals from leadership and India as emerging global manufacturing hub, where automobile technology of electric fleet vehicles is integrating mechanical and electrical engineering and renewable sources of energy. Hydrogen is at research and development scenario. Okay, that's the first sentence that we have, followed by the question. The question is how to perceive the zero carbon emission contributing to national economic development. That's a very specific question. Over to you, professors.
Well, the answer to that question would take a whole course. But the overall thrust of the question is very important. The overall thrust of the question is the fact that we are faced with a climate emergency, climate crisis, which joins upon us to decarbonize every aspect of production and consumption. Now, hydrogen is one of the ways in which we can decarbonize. So hydrogen is a renewable in what's called blue hydrogen, what's called green hydrogen. What's called green hydrogen is entirely renewable. Blue hydrogen is partly renewable, partly not renewable, and so on and so forth. But each of these has the production of hydrogen. Whether you go now, whether we as a country, India, will invest in hydrogen or not, who will invest, right? So these give you two important things. First, the technology of it. So we have to get that technology, learn that technology, incorporate it. All right. Second is the fact of the risk of climate change. So the riskiness of the environment comes about because of impending climate change. The response to which, one of the responses to which for decarbonization is shifting to hydrogen as a source of renewable energy. Right? Now, both of these become strategic challenges. Depending on the firm who's going to produce that renewable hydrogen, depending on the firm who's going to use hydrogen as a fuel, right? And suppose you're in an area like steel, which is hard to decarbonize, then what do I do with hydrogen in decarbonizing that process, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty. Yes, moving on to the next question. The next question is asked by Raja Gopalan Ranganathan. He says, Professor Saha, is it for the middle level to take it up? Currently, the responsibility is to go bottom line. That is the question.
Yeah, sure. If you already have bottom line responsibilities at mid level, this is a program for you. Even if you are not handling PLN responsibilities right now, but expect to handle it in a matter of 4 or 5 years, or if you are interacting with people in your daily interaction with somebody, senior person who is in charge of P&L account, right? This program will help you, because either it will help you manage your job or it will help you manage the understanding of your boss, which will help you better converse with him, because you'll understand his or her world, right? That is the way you look at it.
Right. Thank you, Professor. Moving on to the next question. It's asked by Paritosh Ranjan. He mentions, I'm planning to do PhD in corporate strategy. How would this program help me? That is the question.
This is not an academic program. This will not train you to become a researcher, right? It trains you to understand the basics so that you can put it into practice.
Right.
It's a program meant for practicing managers with leadership goals.
Yeah.
Right. Quickly moving on to the next question. It mentions, can you provide some examples of real-world applications showcasing real-world applications or success stories from previous participants of the program, showcasing how they have implemented strategic leadership principles in their organizations?
Yeah, I think you will. Yeah, your VC now can share some testimonials. I think it's there in your. Some of that can be shared with you. Or broadly, I can tell you what happens. The shift in perspective shift that we have seen is, you see, within the program, we have seen many people report to us back and say that, well, we have been able to successfully engage with our senior leadership much better immediately as you start doing this course. Right? That happens almost instantaneously. It's not always, please remember, if you pick up the skills of strategic thinking, it's not only that your work improves. What improves is the way you look at the world around you. And if the way you look at the world around you changes, the way the world looks at you changes immediately. And that is what brings in new ideas, new deals, new relationships, right? And that cycle gets triggered.
And new confidence.
Right. Quickly moving on to the next one. It mentions, Professor, in a rapidly moving and changing world and technological development, how will strategy help tackle unseen challenges and turbulent waters? Asked by Ravi Kumar.
Yeah, broadly, I think we have answered this. This is precisely about handling uncertainties, right?
Yes. Quickly moving on to the next one. Hi, I am a founder and director of a consulting solutions company. How will this program help me to achieve my business goals?
Yeah, so you are in charge of the P&L account of your organization. So this is meant for you, right? You set the strategies of the organization.
Which path are you going to take?
Yeah.
That choice. This program will help you think about that choice. Because there are many paths that you can take that are available to you. So for somebody like you, this program, both of us think would be valuable.
Right. I'll quickly move on to the next one. Will the course be sector specific or it can be applied to all sectors by and large?
Agnostic.
Thank you.
Not one sector. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Moving on to the next one. I'm working in analytics as a senior architect. How much will this program be helpful to me to excel in my organization?
Again,
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
See, analytics is very interesting. It's very interesting because analytics itself gave you a new way of thinking about business problems. But again, it's very, very process oriented. So what this program will do will equip you to take that skill and put it in the overall context of the firm, and link it to very clear metrics, your P&L and your return on capital. How does an architect in an analytics firm contribute to the P&L? How does that contribute to return on capital? Because the architect that in that is one element.
Right. Moving on to the next one. It's an interesting question.
Shreyashi, like I said, I will be leaving, and Professor Saha will take us to the end of the program. So thank you, everybody. I have a 6:50 hard stop, 5:50 hard stop. So I hope you found it useful, and I hope some of you will come and join. Thank you. Have a very good evening.
Thank you so much, Professor Mohanty. You also have a great evening ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Mohanty, for your time.
Not at all. It's always a pleasure.
Despite your busy schedule, you have given us this time for this webinar. We are grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, so I'll quickly move on to the question. The question says, sir, what is the point? At what point do we need to start thinking and differentiating between strategy and operation?
Yeah, the claim I'm making is you need to start making this distinction at fairly lower levels increasingly.
Right.
Right? And that's the major shift that is happening in the environment. Environment will demand that out of you. Yeah.
Right.
And if I give you a broader answer, one major reason why India lost, see, India, I don't know how many of you know it. You go back 300 years before the British occupied us. India contributed to close to 20% of global GDP. From there, we have fallen down in 1947 to 1% of global GDP. And this fall was because at population scale, Indians lost the art of strategic thinking. So how important is it? It is that important. If you believe the story of rising India, that cannot happen without the country at scale understanding the nuances of strategic thinking.
Moving on to the next one. The question is asked by Sanjan Kar. He mentions, how does the course hold together in light of the rising of artificial intelligence in all senses?
Yes, see, artificial intelligence is just another technology. Like so many technological uncertainties, it is another technological possibility which raises uncertainty in the way you do businesses, right? So if you have the general tools of handling uncertainty, just like it can handle geopolitical uncertainty, the same conceptual tools will be able to handle technological uncertainties of artificial intelligence as well. So artificial intelligence you can see as a technology which introduces uncertainty into your working environment, and you have to cope with it, you have to deal with it, right?
The next question is, does this program help CFO -1?
Yeah, sure. It's
Right.
for you, absolutely.
Indeed. We have a very specific question from Lakshmanan CV. He mentions, I worked in multiple industries and finance function before joining as a CFO with a private equity firm for 15 years with an overall work experience of 35 years. Now I'm a freelancer advising small and medium industries across industries, especially on restructuring and growth ideas. How will this program help me?
Yeah, well, given your experience, we'd love to have that experience come into your classroom. But in a certain sense, you might be surprised the way the concepts that are there in the course, how it might help you look into what you have done in totally new light. Right? That has always happened with our interaction with senior people. After the program, they start seeing their own experience in very new light.
Right. The next question is written by Raja Gopal and Ranganathan. He mentions, do we learn the art of handling resources from different departments and influences the works done to help the P&L? I think what he means to say is, how do we learn the art of handling resources from different departments? And also, how do we learn how it influences the P&L at the end of the day?
We cover that. Yeah.
Yes, we have already spoken about it.
Orchestration on organization inside a firm will be one major element of this whole program. This is a whole module will deal with this question. You have decided as an organization to do X. How do you mobilize 1 lakh frontline people to change course? Right.
We have another question which asks, what is the subtle difference between strategic thinking and defining strategy in sales operations?
Conceptually, we say one is organization strategy and one is a functions or department strategy. But when you come into this program, you will understand more nuanced differences.
We have a question from Ravi Kumar. He mentions, I had completed the SMP from IIM Calcutta. How much value will this program add?
Yeah. I did not get the question.
He has done an SMP, Senior Management Program from IIM Calcutta earlier.
Yeah, so the senior management program is a general management program which focuses on all functional areas of management. This is focused only on strategic issues. So this is a strategy specific program.
Right. We have the next question from Radha Krishnan. Can you share insights into the scientific aspects of decision making and problem solving in strategic leadership, including how leaders balance intuition and analysis in making strategic decisions? And discuss common challenges. I'm sorry, there's just a bit more to it. It's a bit long. And discuss common challenges leaders face in implementing strategic initiatives and strategies to overcome them. That's the second.
We'll talk about it as when you come into the program.
Yes. We have a question from Harsh Maskara. He mentions, hi, I have been a qualitative researcher for 14 years, where I have spent 8 years as a freelance moderator. I would like to be an independent strategic consultant. Will this course help?
Yeah, it will equip with the tools of strategic thinking, right?
We have the next question from Rashmi Mohapatra. The question is, how will this program be helpful to middle management for career growth? Any success stories?
Yeah, as I told you, middle managers, your ability to understand what your organization is doing at the top will get immediately enhanced if you do this program. And your ability to converse with senior people will increase much more. It will become much more effective, that conversation.
Yes, so there is a question which I would like to read out. It mentions, it's asked by Dr. Prakritik Mishra. He mentions, I am professor, thank you for sharing your thoughts. But after listening, I suggest that IIM should hire someone from industry with academic and research expertise for teachings for course delivery. Definitely that create bigger impact. The session sounds more of academic delivery only. The industry's challenges are bigger than what professors have. I'm not able to understand what is written next, but yes. So I wanted to read this out because, of course, we have a different pedagogy, which I would, of course, over to you, Professor Shah. Yes.
Yeah, see, Dr. Mishra, thank you for your observation, right? And this program, yes, the academician is doing it. So this is an academic program in a sense. This will not give you industry fixes. And the hallmark of this program, it will help you understand concepts deeper. Industry practitioners make mistakes because they are not rooted fundamentally in good concepts. Right? That is why you spend $1 million or $100 million and realize a mistake after falling down 15 times, something which would have been done much better at the drawing board itself if you are more conceptually involved. So there is a merit in practitioners, particularly when you are facing uncertain times, to have your concepts honed very sharply. And that is what we offer in this program.
Thank you, Professor. Moving on to the next one quickly. If someone is from the corporate legal background, how will this program be helpful? That's the question.
Corporate legal background, yeah, will not deal with legal uncertainties and legal challenges explicitly. But well, as a legal advisor or the legal cell of an organization, you have to understand also the business dynamics of the organization, right? So you have to understand the CEO's tussle and problems and so on and so forth that he is facing. And that appreciation will happen if you do this program.
The next question is, how do you measure the success of strategic leadership initiatives, both qualitatively and quantitatively?
You come into the program, you will have all of that, right? This goes into great details. So we'll not be able to do it right now.
The next one, I think we would just take maybe one or two more questions. I think we have about a couple of questions left only. So this question mentions, is the program focused on defining the strategy or includes implementation as well?
Yeah, sure. It will include implementation, some defining in small one meeting, and not being able to execute it doesn't mean anything, right? So
Right.
you define has to be enacted, and it has to be enacted at scale, which means it has to be enacted across a large set of people.
Yes, I think with this we have covered most of the queries. We had a query which mentioned, okay.
I think there is one query which is at the last, I think somebody is with a medical background and he or she is wanting to know whether this program suits him or her.
It's in the second year of medical studies, I believe. That was, yes.
Into this program right now, because you are still studying medicine, right? Focus your attention on studying medicine well.
Right. I think with this we have covered most of the questions, all of the questions. Yes.
I think Professor Saha also has a engagement. So he also has to move on. I think what we can do is that as Professor Saha leaves us, we can, take them through the program structure in terms of the design, so that everybody is well aware of the kind of content and the kind of pedagogy, the flow that we have. And further on, I think we will share the email and other aspects of the program so that they are well aware about the program details, right? I would like to thank Professor Saha for rendering his valuable time today. Professor Saha, I think you shared your intellect. It was very, very kind of, eye-opening for all of us in the audience. And I think thank you for all the valuable insights that you have provided. And I think largely we look forward to, being a part of the program and seeing that, how we delve deep into the further insights of the program and generate a value addition from it, actually, as the other batchmates have done earlier. So hope to see a good batch this time. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And thank you everybody who was there in this webinar. We hope to see at least some of you come into your program. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Saha. Have a great evening ahead. Thank you. I will now share my screen and take you all through the program details, as I was mentioning earlier in the chat box as well. We'll share the basic features of the program and certain details which you all were asking about. I hope my screen is visible. Yes, so some of you had questions about the program, how the program would be conducted. It's a live online program, which also has campus modules of total 11 days. The campus modules, the campus immersion is broken up into 3 parts, 4 days, 3 days, and 4 days. Beginning of the program, middle of the program, and towards the end of the program. It's an 8 months program, so it will be spread over 8 months of duration. 1 second, yeah. Yes, so the eligibility to join this program is graduation, of course, which is 10 plus 2 plus 3 in any discipline, and you should possess a minimum of 7 years of work experience. You should have secured 50% marks in aggregate in either graduation or post-graduation if you have a post-graduation degree, right? The selection process is of course through online application, and you have to submit your SOP, which is the statement of purpose, and other documentation supporting your education and your professional background. The timing for the sessions would be 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. in the evening on Fridays, making it convenient for working professionals such as you. We would also be offering you an alumni status on successful completion of the program, provided you meet all the criteria for completion. The program fee was asked for by a couple of you in the chat box and in the Q&A box as well. The total program fee, excluding the application fee of 2,500 rupees, the total program fee is 4,38,000 plus GST. We also have an option of you opting for financial assistance if you so require, right? Let me also tell you that all of you who have joined us today and who have shared your queries on the chat box and also on the Q&A box, all of you will be contacted by our team of academic advisors. You would also be receiving details of the program content, the program brochure, and all of the details will be provided to you over an email and also over a phone call from our advisors, wherein you can also resolve your queries if you have any left after today's session. Moving on to the program content. Right, so the program content is there on screen. I would just read it out for all of your benefit. Why does an organization need a strategy? let me begin from the topmost bullet point. Some of the content areas are mapped with areas of curiosity of typical practitioner or managerial participants of the program, right? As we were discussing during the session with the program directors as well. Moving on to the content. So the first pointer would be, why does an organization need a strategy? Isn't strategy a well laid out and optimized plan? The content would be strategic thinking, the science behind strategy landscapes and relations of conflicts and cooperation. So that is how it would be addressed. We have a problem statement, we have an area of concern or an area of expertise, and this is how we are going to talk about it. That is how the content goes, to make it easier for you to understand. The second part would be, what is the science or economics behind long-standing financial success of certain organizations? The content for this would be competitive advantage in product or service businesses, understanding creation and destruction of moats, economics of digital ecosystems and platforms, economics of scaling or non-linear profit growth. Then we move on to, how are some organizations able to achieve better alignment with their business ecosystem partners and suppliers? The content for which would be managing contracting, outsourcing, and modularization, developing clarity on where, when, and how to push for cooperation. Then we move on to, who delivers strategies on the ground, how to think about the Pandora's box of strategy implementation. The content for which would be structuring and designing small and large organizations, clarifying operational, middle, and top management roles, leading and mobilizing people, strategy practices, and organizational routines, leading people and organizations through technological and institutional transitions. One second. How can one understand the exploding startup ecosystem? The content for which would be as follows: the business model and why it is disruptive, growing a startup from 0 to 1, cash-born venture capital, creating a startup culture inside a large firm. How do large family businesses manage their business portfolios? The content would be corporate strategies, corporate restructurings, mergers and acquisitions, and so on. How do some businesses prosper with support from societal stakeholders while others get mired in episodes of debilitating conflicts? Are businesses around the world organized in a similar way? Appreciating institutions and the way it shapes organizing for business, varieties of capitalism, developing a historical cross-country comparative canvas of economic growth and well-being, understanding the new strategic role of the state in business affairs. Why do some leaders stand out in shaping organizational paths? The content for which would be the art and science of strategic leadership, strategic communication, competing on narratives. So this was all about the program content overview, and we have shared the details of the program as far as the timings are concerned, the program content, the program course fee, the financial assistance that we provide. You would also be contacted by our team of academic advisors. However, you can also reach out to the program manager, Shivani Sharma. Her numbers are mentioned on screen. You may please note them down. You can also email her on the email ID provided. I would just leave it here. I would just leave it here for a couple of minutes for you to note it down. If required, you may please do it.
Finally, thank you, entire team, for organizing this webinar. Professors from IIM Calcutta, the entire audience who have made it this Saturday evening to attend this webinar. We look forward to see you as a part of the program. This particular batch, which is in this admission stage, is the 16th batch, which means that we have already delivered 15 batches over the last about 12 to 13 years. So this has been a long-standing program, enjoying a very good equity in the market, excellent reputation. It has a long list of alums, and we'll be also glad to share the alum details or testimonials in case any of you are interested to interact with anyone. Please reach out to Shivani for all of this, and we look forward to see you as a part of the program. So you can keep an eye on your emails. You will be receiving the program details on your email, so that you can refer to the brochure and the application link. The first step would be to apply online using a link, and post which your application will be put forward for evaluation by the program directors. And once you are chosen for the program, you will receive a formal letter of selection, post which you have to advance with your payment for joining the program. So thank you for joining into today evening, and we look forward to see you as a part of the program. We conclude here.